Blake, are we ready for take two? At least you have a Blake in this version. I just filmed this video and I gotta film it again because all the file got corrupted. So these were the physical books I read in October, and I also listened to 4 audiobooks. I actually went into a reading slump most of 2020. Worst time to go into a reading slump. So this was mainly in the last 2 weeks, and I was on a mental health break, so I had a lot of time. So let's jump through the audiobooks first. Let's start with I Am Legend. Amazing. I listened to this on Audible. I've had it on my account for so long. It's not a long book at all, and as most of you probably have watched the movie, a lot of people have, I really do enjoy the movie with Will Smith, and you can definitely see the crossover of the inspiration that the movie got, but I don't know, I want to say I prefer the book. It's about a 5.5 hour listen on Audible, and it's spooky, and the ending is amazing. I loved the ending of the book. Definitely get an insight into this guy's mind, and I loved that, like being alone. He became a bit of a dick and stuff and a bit chauvinistic, but you just wanted to listen to it more and more. And like the chase scene was crazy creepy, and the narration was really good. I only paid like $1.99 or something for the book. I didn't use a credit on Audible because it's on sale ages ago. Like I think I got it last year in the sale. Finally listened to it and I gave it 4 stars. Fantastic. The book that was super hyped and I didn't enjoy as much was My Sister the Serial Killer. Everyone has been screaming about this book, giving it 5 stars across the board, and it's on Script. Oh, by the way, thank you for anyone who signed up using my refer a friend link to Script, because I have a few months free reading now. So I'll link it down again for you if you want 60 days free instead of 30 and I get a month free. It's all down below. But I listened to this on Script and it started so strong, and it is about 2 sisters, and one of them keeps killing her boyfriends. Her sister helps her clean up the body and clean up the mess. Her battery just went dead and all my other batteries were dead, and I just found one that wasn't dead. I had to scavenge in a handbag and I found... Everything is against me today. Anyway, yeah, so sister helps her clear up the bodies and stuff and keeps her secret, and it starts so strong because the first thing you read, you're thrown into the murder scene and her sister's helping her clean up, and it's so blunt and has so much promise. I'm like, this is weird the way it's written. I love it. Like, we're just thrown into this. We're gonna get answers and find out what happens, and then, like, I'm not spoiling anything here, don't worry. One of the sisters has a crush on the doctor at work, but then her sister likes him and they start dating. He's like, oh no, I know the pattern here, oopsie, and things like that. But then by halfway through I'm like, so we're gonna start getting answers. Where is the detail here? Where are we gonna develop these characters? And I kept listening and I started getting annoyed. I'm like, come on, we're nearing the end of this book. When are we gonna get these answers? And the ending annoyed me so much. It honestly felt like a draft. It felt like a draft of a book, a really promising draft that you might send to a publisher and be like, wow, this has so much, it did have that thing. That's why it really annoyed me. It had so much potential and I don't get the hype. It felt unfinished, unfleshed out, and it really annoyed me. We got no answers, no deep character development. A really, I'm sorry, in my opinion, awful ending. If they wanted to end it the way they did, if they'd have developed it more and then maybe there was a time period or something for the ending, if you've read it, you maybe know what I mean, then that could have been better, but I had to give it 2 stars, and I felt kind of generous giving it 2 stars as well. But yeah, but I seem to be like the 1% of people that did not like this book, so don't let me sway you. Obviously, book reviews and opinions, book reviews and stuff are just opinions, so most people enjoyed it. Maybe you will. Next audiobook was Fattily Ever After by Stephanie Yeboah. I follow Stephanie on Instagram, and she's such a lovely girl. And when I first started listening to this book on Audible, because she narrates it, I definitely wanted to get the audiobook. It felt a bit all over the place. I felt the structure was just flipping. I was really like jarring in how it was written, like it wasn't edited well, the style of the book, and I was like, oh no. But then, I don't know, she just got her stride and it like threw me into it, and I was like, I just binged it. And the book is about her life growing up and, in her words, being a fat black woman. The struggles, and she's so raw and real and just like doesn't hold anything back, and I love it when authors do that with like memoirs and non-fiction. Just don't hold back and really say it how it is. And it must have been, I can't imagine how painful, well, I can imagine because I wrote a book which was a slight memoir, if you've read it, thank you, a couple of years ago, which was very painful to write, and I never want to write anything like that ever again. It killed me to write that book. So I do understand that, and the whole way through I kept thinking it was fantastic for education, it gave you a whole different angle to look at things from, but I was like, this could save someone's life. You know, when you get those books that it's like, so many people need to hear these words, and this could save someone, honest to God. And for that, I've got to give you massive applause, honestly, and 5 stars. Because any book, like, I struggle to rate non-fiction anyway, but if a book can do that, and I felt it, I was like, oh God, someone is going to read this, it's going to click, they're not going to feel alone. And for that, 5 stars, well done, brilliant. And the last audiobook I listened to was, and it was on Scribd as well, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And it was okay. It's basically, you know, it's churned out content, but the audiobook is quite funny. There's some funny bits in it. Not laugh out loud, but it's an enjoyable listen. I gave it 3 stars. It's just about not caring about the things that don't matter in life and really honing in on that. A lot of language used, which I'm a fan of. I know not everyone's a fan of that, but it's in the title. There's going to be a lot of bad language in the book, and I don't mind at all. And it's also available on YouTube, I think, but it's definitely on Scribd. So I gave it 3 stars. It was an interesting listen, but that was it, and I would never reread it, kind of thing. Right, let's go on to the physical books that I read. This one is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Oh, sorry, I can't do that. And I understand, well, it's not a children's book, because the note from the author says that this is for everyone, and especially for adults who has lost that inner child. And it is about the little prince who lives on a planet. He has 3 volcanoes that he sweeps out of his tiny little planet. One is extinct and 2 are dormant, I think that's right. And he travels to all these different planets, and there's also a man that you'll meet on Earth, but then it kind of like jumps to the little prince. And all the people he meets on these little planets, as an adult reading this, you feel it. You get where the author's going writing this. He's writing this for children, but he's definitely writing this for adults. Like the businessman on one little planet, doesn't he like own all the stars? And he's like, well, how can you own all the stars? He's like, well, no one thought about it. I thought about it first, so I own all the stars. And he spends his whole life counting the stars, counting everything he owns. And as an adult, you see that, and it's so beautifully written. You see that and you get it, like people like in the business world or super high up who are just obsessed or greedy with money, and that's all they spend their lives on. And the little prince is like, what a peculiar grown-up. And oh my God, it's so good. So 5 stars, 100%. There's an edition of this on Amazon. It's like blue hardback in a really beautiful sleeve that I'd love to get. I might treat myself to on my birthday for that. I'm not going to spend long talking about this one. This is Thursday's Child by Nikki French. I picked this up when I was at the hospital with my mom, and I had to wait for her to go and get her x-rays and a consultant and all that. So I picked this up from W.H. Smith, and I started to really enjoy it. It's about a therapist, a psychologist, who is kind of goes through the story as a bit of a detective. Trigger warning, it is by sexual assault. But does get a bit descriptive, so please be warned. Not like it's going to matter, because I'm going to tell you something in a minute of why I wanted to put this book in a blender and I couldn't even give it 1 star. So it follows her, and this case seems very familiar to something she experienced, and she goes back to her old hometown, yada yada. And there were so many unanswered questions. They kept like hinting at things that she'd done in her past, this psychologist, and I was like, oh, they're hinting at it, and soon they're gonna explain it. They're doing that thing. They're gonna explain it in a minute. No, they're gonna explain it. Dean Reeves, is that was his name? Like, they're gonna explain who that is in a minute. We're gonna get closure. You know why I got no closure in this book? Almost none, except you find out who, what, where, and why. But all these things they kept talking about through the whole book. This is number 4 in a series. 4th in a series. Nowhere does it say that. Nowhere does it say that this is the 4th in a series. So that would mean, if you're not going to be very clear about it, it's part of a trilogy or whatever, that it can be read as a standalone book. And yes, it can be read as a standalone book, but there's too much backstory you're clearly missing, and it's annoying and it's wasteful to read through all this stuff that doesn't come to fruition. I guess it comes to fruition in her last book or something, and you get all the answers. But I was so annoyed. I only realised it's part of a series when I went into Goodreads. I was like, I need to hear what people think about this book, because I am raging. And everyone's like, 4th by Nikki French, another great book. I was like, oh, for God's sake. So I can't even give it a star rating, and I wasted that much of my time. It wasn't exactly a small book. Anyway, my next book, I actually had to like flick through, read the blurb and everything to remember what happened in this book. It's probably why I gave it 2 stars, and it is Eyewitness by Nikki McKay. It is a bit of a thriller about a girl who is found with the murder weapon at the scene of the crime with a dead body. She pleads guilty, goes to jail, but she says she didn't do it. So you find out why she did that, And she comes out, she gets released. This all starts, it's not a spoiler. She gets released and it's about her trying to prove her innocence and finding the real killer. Really bad that I had to go back through that and then flick through to remember what happened and really think about it. Didn't leave an impression. I didn't like the twist, and that's all really I have to say about it. I gave it 2 stars. I feel 1 star needs to be, it's pretty harsh to give, to be honest. I'd have to really hate or despise a book, I think, to give it 1 star. So 2 star. Yeah, it was fine. There was some good bits in it, but overall, would not recommend. This one is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge, or Edo Lodge. I hope I'm not pronouncing Edo Lodge? Rennie Edo Lodge. Amazing. Like, the first chapter, I've had this for ages now, the first chapter taught me more about racism in Britain than I ever learned in like ever a school or anything like that. It was fantastic. It looks like a short book, but it probably took me the same amount of time to read this, or longer than it did like this, or even that, because you really will find yourself putting it down a lot and really absorbing what you've just read, and that's really important to do because it's a heavy book, lots of facts, lots of studies, lots of statistics, which I do love in a non-fiction. Really just makes you think, makes you drop the book and think. Absolutely fantastic book, and I absolutely loved when she was talking about feminism and how race needs to be included within the feminist movement and how it's not, and her experience with talking to people within the feminist movement, how it's very white and why race is really important. Something I never really thought to consider. It has a lot of those moments of you dropping, you're like, I never thought about that. You know, you have a lot of those moments. So I did it chapter by chapter, and I think I mixed it in with a different, like an audio book, because it's very heavy and you want to give yourself time to process it. So don't rush through this, but 5 stars, fantastic. As you know, we got another 5 stars. I briefly talked about this in my last book video, and it is The Binding by Bridget Collins. This is my 5-star read, my favourite read of the year. It's a little bit magical, but everything is set in, it's not really fantasy, I'd say it's light fantasy, it's got a bit of magic in it, but everything's set like the world we know it. But the only difference is what books are. So books there are memories. Like, for example, you have something traumatic happen to you, or you have a secret, a deep, dark secret, something, you know, some terrible memory. You can go to a binder and have your memories bound in a book, and then you forget about it. You don't even know you've been bound. And we follow Emmett throughout this book, who goes on to be an apprentice binder. And this isn't spoiling it, don't worry. If I spoil anything, I'll put a spoiler warning up so you can jump ahead. Be find out in the back. Emmett, when he becomes an apprentice, finds a volume with his name on it, which means he has been bound before, and he's like, oh my god, what have I done? What horrific thing did I do, or what horrific thing happened to me? Because he obviously doesn't remember being bound. But he finds a book with his name on it, so it's his journey, and you are going to figure out why he was bound, what memory was bound, and what happened to him. And it is so good, and so many of you are messaging me on Instagram saying, since I recommended this, because this is on Scribd, I listened to the audiobook while reading the physical book. Definitely recommend doing that. It's just you don't want to stop. You don't want to stop going through it. So many of you are like, oh my god, it's so good. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. I mean, I'm clearly not alone. It's got a crazy amount of 5 stars. But I would say that even if you're into like any kind of fantasy, which I don't think I was, but I suppose you would call this like fantasy, it doesn't go into the magic system or how binding works, really, a very little amount, so I don't mind that. I'm happy the magic's there, but I would love, and I've said this to everyone who messaged me on Instagram, I'd love there to be a prequel that goes into the history and the magic of binding and how it truly works, and I'd love it if it was from the viewpoint of Seredith. That would be amazing. I did look at Bridget Collins' other book, I can't remember what it's called, but didn't tickle my fancy. I read the blurb, I was like, nah, that doesn't sound for me, but the binding, it is amazing. And also, I love when books like this, like Something Is Something Else, like they have something called novels in this book, because bindings and books are sold on the black market, which you're not allowed to do. So people will enjoy listening to people's horrific memories. They're like horror stories to them. But novels are fakes. They're fake bindings. They're made up stories that people on the black market sell as real bindings of people's true memories. So novels are made up stories. How good, like, I love that, I love that, that's so cool. Trigger warning though, slightly, that there is talk of abuse in this. Not crazy heavy or descriptive, but it is in here, and how people use binding for their own evil intent. They'll, you know, getting people bound so they forget what they did to them and things like that, so they can do it again to them, and things like that. So that is in this book, but it's not super prevalent, but just as a warning. But 10 out of 10, the romance, oh my god, and it ended the way I wanted to, and yeah, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so last book I'm going to talk about is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to the Hunger Games that came out this year. I had no idea that it was published this year. Someone messaged me on Instagram. I was like, oh my god, you know, I was a huge fan of the Hunger Games. So haven't we watched the movies after I watched this? I'm like, I'm sorry, I need to binge the movies again. I gave this 4 stars. Binged through it in a couple of days. It is good. Without spoilers, I'm going to do a spoiler free now, then I'm going to say goodbye, and anyone who wants to stick around for a few spoilers who've already read it, stick around for a little bit. No spoilers though. This is set at the 10th Hunger Games, and you follow Coriolanus Snow. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correct. Coriolanus Snow. Anyway, President Snow as we know him in the Hunger Games trilogy, it goes back in time to the 10th Hunger Game, 10 years after the war is ended and the rebels have been defeated. And yet, he becomes a mentor in the 10th Hunger Game, and he's just a student at this point. So I'm putting him at, what, 17, 18 in this book? And you follow his journey through the 10th Hunger Games, and it's a very good prequel. It really is, it's a good prequel. I did really enjoy it. I don't think I've ever given any of the Hunger Games 5 stars, but I did give it a strong 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. One thing with the character development of Snow, I don't know, they could have gone one way, which would have been very stereotypical. Trying not to give spoilers here. And I'm glad they didn't, but then again, was there much character development with Snow? But other than that, I did like it, and now I want to jump into spoilers because I have things to say. So, if you're not here for spoilers, did give this 4 stars, definitely recommend. But now I'm going to jump into spoilers. So, if you're going to leave us here, thank you very much for joining me. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Did you enjoy them? And what did you read this month that was your 5-star, excellent, must-recommend book? Let me know down below, and I'll see you later. Alright, bye! They gotta go. Okay, spoiler time, right. So, I think everyone who has read this book definitely got the hints for the theory that everyone's talking about. I definitely got the hints that Lucy Gray is Katniss's great-great-great-great-grandmother, because you don't know that she's dead. We don't know that, and I like how that was kind of left open and it tied in with the song from previous in the book. That was really cool. I like that. It added an element of mystery, but I think she did it so we then all theorize. As soon as I closed the book, I jumped straight onto YouTube. I was like, is anyone else theorizing that she could possibly be Katniss's great-great-great-grandmother? Won't go into, I mean, if you've read it, you'll know there's so many hints, little hints that could suggest that she possibly is her great-great-great-grandmother throughout this book, which is really cool. But then it made me think that if Lucy Gray is indeed a relative and a great-grandmother of Katniss Everdeen, then Snow the whole time saved her from the 10th Hunger Games, saved Lucy from the 10th Hunger Games, not out of love, as we all know, it was out of pure selfish narcissism. For his own power and greed, that's the only reason he wanted her to win. Only reason. We can all agree on that, right? That wasn't murky or grey waters. Did his, and say she survived in that field, near that house. Did his own narcissism play into the creation of Katniss Everdeen? He did everything and cheated and lied to get Lucy Gray to win for his own power and narcissism. Through his narcissism did he create Katniss Everdeen, who would now come and destroy him and everything he has worked to keep and build in the capital. Is he responsible for Katniss Everdeen even being alive? Because he didn't actually kill her at the end and kept her alive in that arena? You know what I mean? If they are related, then he is the reason that Katniss is alive now. That is poetic. That his own greed and psychopathic tendencies that he thought he was doing all for himself actually led to his demise in the end. I mean, that might not be true, but I like how Suzanne Collins definitely leaves it up for interpretation. I love that they were left with that and she'll never answer it. That kind of thing. She's never going to answer that question, but she's going to leave that with us as the reader, and that is beautiful. So yeah, 4 stars. Do recommend if you're a fan of Hunger Games, check it out. And now I'll say goodbye to the rest of you. If you made it this far and you want to talk about that theory or anything else about these books, please be considerate of others and just put like a spoiler warning at the top of your comment, so anyone who's just scrolling doesn't accidentally start reading, and you know, it's nothing worse than someone spoiling a good book for you. So yeah, loving leaving 10 books this month. Last month. Oh god, I'm dropping them everywhere. That is not bad, is it? That is not. I'm very impressed. I don't know if I'll be able to do it this month. Now I'm getting back to doing work, but hey, we'll see. We'll see. All right, and I'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, comment, Instagram, all the fun stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Blake says bye.